you have a lot of process variation and you just simply don't even know what all the variation is. But now you can feed those start points, the start situation and the end situation to an LLM and make it figure out how this happened. And then based on those, you do those a few iterations, you get this list of things, you validate that with the business and see how far you got. And this way you're actually mining for the more deterministic rules with an LLM that the business validates. And this is the way to go in many of these projects. It's not that you can only do this work with an LLM. It's that it will take you so much more time if you don't use an LLM to mine out these things.
Hello and welcome to the Agile Workforce podcast. This is episode number 26. My name is Kristina Auberi. I lead marketing at Digital Workforce, and I'm joined by the most amazing co-host, Nico Lehtonen, AI solution architect. How are you doing, Nico?
Hi. Yeah, thank you. All good. Although it is the coldest week of the year, and I'm not a fan of that. Not at all. How are you?
I'm doing good as well, thanks. Yeah, I visited London quickly this week. I attended a panel discussion on leadership in the age of artificial intelligence. I'll share some takeaways from that conversation. And in addition to that, we'll talk about some of the new Google updates that have come out this week. And we also have very exciting news to share. But with that, let's get started. So like I said, I attended a panel discussion. It was organized by the Finnish-British Chamber of Commerce and Danish UK Trade Association. And we had a fantastic conversation with fellow panelists, and we got to answer some really tough questions around, like, from the audience as well, regarding like ethics and what we see as most challenging. But then, of course, we shared some of the real outcomes we've seen personally and at work, and how do we keep our own judgment sharp, and what gets lost if we only talk about efficiency and so forth. But maybe a few points to share from there. So Erika Hakala was one of the panelists, and she was sharing that she has already in her small marketing agency employed a person to do the AI verification role. And I think this is important because I think we will see more of these roles emerging. To an extent, it's something that we do ourselves, of course, because we need to own the output in a way before we deliver that to anyone. But these tools are getting so good, but someone needs to verify that is actually something that is true, and there are no differences in nuances, because a tiny wording may make a big difference in the actual outcome and make it actually false in a way. So how do you see this role of an AI verification, Nico? Do you see that emerging?
Well, I mean, whether it's going to be a role or whether it's going to be a task for people is probably the question. Like, if we look at it from a process automation perspective, it's always been so that, instead of a team of 10 people, you can reduce it to a team of 3 or so on. And validation loops, the human in the loop is important in these larger automations often. I would say that AI validation is just a part of that in process automation. But of course, because you will need to have some sort of expertise. You can't just have an AI validator who's going to look at everything that is going through in your company. It needs to be role-specific, task-specific, and
Exactly.
understanding. So I think it will definitely be a task that people will be picking up. Absolutely.
Yeah. Also, in that event, had a conversation with a lady who works in an legal AI startup, and she has a law degree, and she's doing that type of like verification for that particular a tool and product that they are developing. But I think we'll see more of this emerging. At some point, we'll have agents doing this type of verification tasks. But until a human needs to own the result, I think we'll need that input for sure. While we are on the role side, maybe something to bring up from Davos. I don't know if you watched the presentations from Davos. I did watch all the big names from the AI space. So there were Satya Nadella was at least in a few presentations there. And then, of course, the CEO of Microsoft, and then Jensen Huang, of course, CEO of NVIDIA. And then there was an extremely interesting conversation between CEO of Google DeepMind, Demis Hassabis, and then CEO Anthropic, Dario Amodei. But maybe something to bring from these, something that stayed with me from all these conversations. And while we are on the roles, Microsoft actually shared that, as I gave an example, that within LinkedIn, they used to have 4 roles in their team. And so they had a product manager, designer, front-end engineer, and back-end engineer. So 4 roles, which are now combined into one single title, which is full stack builder. So I think this is something that we will also see emerging more, that our roles will cover much more than they used to with the tools that we now have at hand. So anything to comment here?
Yeah, well, I think I absolutely agree with that. And I think I've noticed that as well. If I look at all the numerous job offers I get on LinkedIn and so on, the list of things to cover is so long. So it's I would say that it's a two-parter. So it's that companies might not know that they're actually looking to employ 2 people instead of 1, and they are expecting that one person to be able to cover all these roles inherently, which typically would have taken 2 or 3 people. So I don't know which it is. I would say that right now my gut feeling is that they don't know that they would actually need more people for it. But I'm sure that there will be a shift in the next year or so.
Yeah. Also, maybe from the panel discussion related to roles, Oliver Anderson, who is currently in an ERP, AI-powered ERP product company. So he said that when they are recruiting for new engineers, they used to give a task and 6 hours for engineers to like complete that task and then come with what they've built. But you can't really do that nowadays because anyone can with the tools in a way to do that. But the difference comes when they make people to explain what they've done and what are the choices they've made and so forth. So you need to be able to explain that. And at that point, it doesn't really matter if you come with 20 plus years of experience with the thing, or if you have been self-teaching yourself about these things, but you can just explain it as well. So I think that's an interesting point of view. And I think we discussed this internally at Digital Workforce as well, that at some point in the education world and in university, will we have like oral examinations, or what will be the future? Because how do you make sure that people really get it?
Yeah, I think already right now, like in the States, if you have a remote interview, you're asked to show around your room and everything so that people can see that you don't have another machine set up or a phone next to you where ChatGPT is giving you the optimal replies to every single question you're facing.
Yeah.
And of course, now you can have it with earbuds and so on. So it will probably be done in some sort of Faraday cage where there's no technology, no electronic equipment works there, just to try and make sure that it's the person talking in the interview and not AI.
Yeah, and on that, let's move on to some Google updates from this week. So we have mentioned in this program, this podcast, multiple times, world models, a concept that you can hear from Google leaders, Demis Hassabis and others, and how they see that as a crucial step reaching AGI, artificial general intelligence, in the future. And with that context, we've also referred to something called Genie 3. And Genie 3 is a world model, and it was launched in August last year as a research project, but still sort of like publicly outside of Google. And I think we mentioned back then this Genie 3 model, but what comes out now is this world model is now officially moved from a research phase into public prototype. And as of late January this year, just a few days ago, it was launched so that if you are on Google's Ultra subscription level, the highest tier, you can have access in the US to Genie 3. And what it does, it generates interactive 3D digital environments where you can walk, you can interact with. So when you explain this situation that you need to show around your room, you can in theory make that like prompt that to be something different than it is actually in that physical space you are in. So it's a wild world, and but it's an interesting element, and I think people should pay attention what's happening with world models and Genie 3, and when does that come available to the other tiers as well. So it's currently limited to 60 seconds due to massive computing power, obviously required to simulate reality in real time. And like I said, access is currently only in the Google AI Ultra tier in the US. But you can, I was checking some of the examples that they share on the page. And yeah, you can just like add an image from your apartment. Let's say that you have a cat and you take an image, you take a picture of your cat. Then you upload that picture to Genie 3, and then you prompt it to take the perspective of the cat and walk around in your apartment, and it just generates the world there on the go, and you can see everything from the cat's like perspective, and it's pretty mind blowing what you can think and try with the tool. So anything to comment here, Nico?
One thing that came to mind for me is I wonder how far OpenAI is in any of this. And I'm only bringing this up because of the deal they did with Disney. So if you and in general, can you use copyrighted material as a basis here? As the theme and so on. Because if I could in Genie 3 make myself a view of a make believe Disney world, that's just gonna give me a tour of it. That would be quite cool. I wouldn't use it for work purposes, but just thinking that these kinds of things might become more commonplace as well in the future. Probably not near future, but let's give it 2 years.
Yeah, to be seen. But I mean, in work context, if you work in industries that you need to create simulations of the real world situations, I don't know, in dangerous conditions or whatever, it's quite incredible what you can do with this tool. But yeah, let's stick with Google. They announced also a few days ago that Gemini will be available in Chrome. So we have also discussed this earlier, and some of the steps that Google has taken with the AI overviews and Google AI mode that you can, or AI mode that you can use in Chrome. And then we also know that Chrome has the leading market position when it comes to browsers. I think approximately 70% of all browsers are Chrome to date. So bringing Gemini, one of the leading AI models, available into your Chrome is a pretty big thing, and that may have big implications to how people get used to using AI tools, and also in terms of security, in terms of purchasing in the future, in terms of companies wanting to be visible in AI results. I think it'll still be really important how well you do the Google optimization part in a way. So yeah, big implications here. So it will be persistent side panel in your Chrome, and again, available in the US for the time being, but looking forward to getting this to Europe as well. But how do
Yeah,
you
for
see
that
this
one.
move, Nico?
Yeah, a lot of stores and online shops have their own, AI assistants that help you with the purchases and so on. But most of them are trash. You only have to look at Amazon's one. It's horrible. But there are many other bad examples out there that don't do a good job. And I could see that these browser embedded AI models, especially if they're slightly agentic, could easily replace all of those. And you wouldn't have a need to have your own shopping agent on your own store website.
That's right. And this in particular introduces agentic capabilities, meaning that it doesn't just answer your question, but takes actions on your behalf across different websites. So yeah, just showing a demo from the announcement on the page, but do have a look at that. And let's looking forward to having it available here as well.
This might actually lead to some sort of scenarios where there's a shopping guide for agents or web stores somewhere, so that when Gemini looks at the shop, it understands what kind of things can be bought there. How do you do things. Sort of like an MCP server, but for the shop front.
No, but that's exactly what's happening. And I'm not a specialist within e-commerce and all that, but I do know that these updates from Google side are really big things for e-commerce owners, and they need to be looking into this very carefully currently. And also from just a traditional website point of view, like we've said before in this podcast as well, that you need to prepare for the agent traffic already now. So you need to make sure that your page is being served not just to us humans, but AI agents. And you need to make sure that the information AI agents are looking for is available in the right format easily, and make sure it's there when you get this agent traffic. So yeah, that's an interesting twist. Maybe one more thing I want to bring up from Google's side is that I heard of this new job opening they have announced, and that's a director of AGI economics. So if you are in economics, I think this is a really interesting position Google DeepMind is hiring for in London. So you will be at the forefront of understanding the profound economic transformations that will accompany the arrival of artificial general intelligence, AGI, and artificial superintelligence, ASI. And you will lead a new area of research exploring post-AGI economics, the future of scarcity, and the distribution of power and resources in a world of fundamentally reshaped by advanced AI. This is directly from their job announcement, and you can go and check that on LinkedIn or our other sources. But I think it's fair to say that they are quite certain that AGI is somewhere there around the corner, and they are preparing for that from this perspective as well. So maybe something you also may want to take a look at, and particularly if you have the right degrees and if you have the right experience and background, this could be a really interesting position for sure. All right. What about Nico? Anything you want to share with us? I know we've made some releases lately. Digital Workforce. We've been announcing some enterprise level agentic solutions being brought into our customers. I know we have many of similar ones coming out fairly soon. I'm working on those. So anything you want to comment? I know you've been involved in many of these projects. Anything you want to share on a general high level to our audience?
Yeah, it's been interesting. There's been long discussions on how what kind of things can be done, should be done. Organizations tend to be, as mentioned before, tend to be on the Copilot level and are often don't have the expertise to how to utilize AI in process automation or into transforming their business either. And I think those are the two steps that companies start to be more and more ready for. I know we have the Klarnas and the Duolingos, but those are just two examples. I think that going forward within the next year, 2 years, it's really going to start shifting now, and companies will be more prepared to take the next step. Maybe it comes first on the process automation level, and then it goes to the transforming business type of level. But the point is that there's less hesitance to utilize AI in these types of projects now. And it's as someone who knows how to work with this stuff, it's clear to me. But I think it's just great to see that the buyers are also seeing it now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and these are pretty complex and challenging projects in a way to do. It doesn't happen overnight, as we both know, and maybe you can summarize quickly the main points that why it's a completely different setting to have an enterprise level AI agent set up and working compliantly and all that. So compared to something that you can build today yourself on your laptop, but it's really good to start seeing these real cases going into production, and so that everybody can learn what's possible out there. And also really happy to see that companies in the Nordics, in Europe, are also taking these steps, not just the US companies, but really investing into this, exploring and getting the learnings to take this into reality. But yeah, maybe if you just want to summarize, because we do, in this podcast, we have been talking about using AI tools for your personal use, for your team use, but then on an enterprise level as well. And those are, of course, different things. So maybe if you just want to quickly just summarize the main points if you are working on an enterprise level solution? What's the difference there?
Yeah. The biggest bridges to gap are to do with the reliability, the repeatability. Because if you build, a type Copilot type of agent, or if you're using those, you often have to reprompt it or retry it just because it might fail, it might hallucinate, and so on. Whereas with these enterprise level solutions, there's so much more in there than just data being fed to an LLM, and that's that. So I would say that anybody who feels they are good with building Copilot type of agents, set yourself a challenge and try to think of how would you make it more reliable? How would you make it so that you only need to run it once and you know what's going to happen? And a good way to jump on to the next level from a sort of personal productivity perspective is to start using these, like Microsoft's AI agent builder is already a good step in that direction, but it will require more code. It will require more technical components, and it's just about using the LLMs in the right places instead of using the LLM for as many things as possible. It's actually the other way around, but it does facilitate building solutions that would not have been viable to do before. Maybe you have a lot of process variation and you just simply don't even know what all the variation is. But now you can feed those start points, the start situation and the end situation to an LLM and make it figure out how this happened. And then based on those, you do those a few iterations, you get this list of things, you validate that with the business and see how far you got. And this way you're actually mining for the more deterministic rules with an LLM that the business validates. And this is the way to go in many of these projects. It's not that you can only do this work with an LLM. It's that it will take you so much more time if you don't use an LLM to mine out these things. And that's what it facilitates. And that's what makes a lot of these projects even possible to do, because you have that extra brain doing that monkey work for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That wasn't feasible due to resources, money, or other reasons before. Exactly. So yeah, maybe one point to add is the auditability, which is the utmost importance in the enterprise solution. So you need to have that built in the solution as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the more deterministic components you have, the easier the auditing becomes, because you know exactly what happens in those spots, and then the responsibility LLM will be easier to manage as well, because you have your telemetry and so on, but because the responsibility is so much lower, it's easier to trace what's happening, and it's easier to dig into how to fix things if something is not performing like it should.
Yeah. Well said. Anything else you want to share, Nico, before we wrap up?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is going to be our last podcast for now, isn't it?
Well, that's right. Thank you, Nico, so much. So we are wrapping up in a special mode this time, because we're actually wrapping up this whole podcast for now. So Nico is moving towards new adventures. So we call it quits now for this podcast, but we at the same time want to thank you, Nico. It has been fantastic having these talks with you and really look into the different perspectives from the world of AI. And really, I hope we have been able to inspire our listeners on a personal level, on a team level, and also in the organizational level, what is possible and what are the limitations and how can you proceed. And what I can guarantee you anyways is that if you do have these skills and this, I would say, curiosity and mindset of experimentation and following the AI space, you will have a better position maybe in the work markets going forward. So I think keep that attitude and keep that experimentation in. And but thanks, Nico, so much for your contribution, and it's been wonderful having this chat with you. And thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if we were to now go back to listen to the first episodes from a year ago, it feels like it's a time capsule to another time already. So what happens when because all of this is going to be online for, however long. So in, 3 years already, I'm going to be laughing at all the things here and thinking, oh yeah, that happened. Things are moving so fast, and they might just be accelerating even further in the next months and years. Yeah, hopefully we'll catch up in some way or form in the future as well on what's happening in the technology space in the US, in China, in Europe, these might become different entities altogether.
I think so as well. And I'm also, I know that Digital Workforce has some plans for new podcasts, so keep an eye out on those ones. And with that, thank you so much, Nico. I wish you all the best, and let's keep in touch. And thank you for all our listeners. And stay curious and keep on exploring and follow what's happening in the world of AI.
Thanks,
Everyone.
and thank you all.
Thank you, Nico. Thanks.